Anyway, thank you all for having me today. The dean, the school, Noel, Pat, everybody. I usually don't do speeches, you know. This is not my line of work, so you'll excuse me if it's not 100% professional. But anyway, it didn't cost you a lot to enter. So, I understand that you guys are moving into the school for an MBA. You're going to be here for 2 years or so. And you're all thinking, I imagine you're all thinking, gee, well, with this paper here that says that an MBA, I'm going to make a lot of money. I'm going to be successful. Yeah, kind of. So I'd like to share my experience because I went through that thing myself. Well, maybe it's of some use for you. The first thing, you know, the typical, the good news and the bad news. The good news is, yes, you're on a good track. And certainly having the piece of paper will be useful. But it really depends a lot more on what you are going to do with your life, with your brain, with your effort, and how you're going to apply your time during the next 2 years to really prepare yourself, or just coast and, like they say in Mexico, nadar de muertito, which means, you know, just float in the water. Because it's possible to do that. And in my country, I know many people in the education establishment, they tend to do that. They just do nothing, and then they get the automatic pass, and they get their paper, and here's a paper, and that means that I'm certified whatever. But there's no substance. So it really depends on you if there's going to be substance or not. So think about that. The bad news is there's always a lot of bad news. You know, this time the United States is going through this tremendous crisis, and it'll be a waste of time to review it. The high unemployment, the foreclosures, the mortgages, this and that. You know, these things happen. And for me, it came at a very young age when I was studying my MBA in the United States. I was doing okay. You know, I got a job in the U.S. I made $2,000 a month. You know, could pay my mortgage. Had a nice house there. But I decided to go back to Mexico. It was in '81. And as soon as I came back, Mexico got hit by a huge devaluation, and the exchange rate went from 20 pesos per dollar to 200. So you can make your account of how many dollars I was earning after that. So I was down, you know, and we were living in this absolute misery, and the country had nowhere to go. And people actually started emigrating. I remember my parents decided that things were going so bad that they bought a house near the Houston area and actually moved to live there for some time. Nobody wanted anything to do with Mexico. And I want to share something with you, very interesting. Carlos Slim, who you know is one of the leading Mexican businessmen, is quoted as saying, "It was a great time. Everybody was selling and nobody was buying." Sounds familiar? What's happening right now? Everybody's selling, nobody's buying. It's a great time. So, bad times are good times if you can know what to make out of them. So, it's really up to you. Now, one thing's for certain. I think the United States has gone way overboard in terms of too much debt, way too high expectations about what a person can make. For example, Pat was telling me about these auto workers that put doors in the cars and make $100,000 a year. It's not possible. It's not possible. You cannot do that in a modern globalized economy. Why? Because there's millions of people all over the world who are willing to put doors on a car for a fraction of that. So if you want to put doors on a car, you better get used to living on $10,000 or $15,000 a year. Or you better not think about putting doors on a car. How about designing the cars? But there's lots of options out there. And of course, you all are in a good position to take advantage of that because you're valuing education. It's obvious that you value the education and your preparedness because you're here. So that's the good news. The other thing I want to talk to you about today is about finding your element. I read this great book. It's called The Element. The author is Ken Robinson. And he's an educator, a British guy. It's very, very interesting. I look it up on the internet or buy the book. The concept is really simple. The element is that place where you are when the things that you do naturally well get together with your natural talents and what you love to do. So you love something and you do it naturally well, you're in your element. Find your element. Because things will be much easier after that. Another nice point of that book is how in academia, in business school like this, certain personalities are more favored because of the environment. But there's many other personalities out there that are enormously valuable for society and for business that are not really valued in the academic world. And I'm talking here, well, there's like a tier, like a 3-tier value system. Number one is the guys who are in science and business studies and all these technical stuff. Number 2 tier is humanities. And then the 3rd tier, that totally undervalued, is all the arts, and especially the performing arts. But you stop and think of it, there's some pretty successful people out there in the performing arts, like Michael Jackson, for example. Well, he didn't do so bad. And all these stars that are out there, I don't think they did too good in the business school media, but they were doing what they love. So they were able to rise above the median and be hugely successful on a world scale. So my advice for you would be, don't start thinking about the money, because money is not important. And you're going to say, well, sure, because he's got a lot. He can say that, right? Right. Yeah. But when you have it, you're going to find out that it's not important. Why? Because it's much more important to be what you want to be and to do what you want to do. And as a consequence of that, you'll be able to have whatever you want. Most people start the other way around and say, I want to have a house, and I want to have a car, and I want to have a second home. That's not the way to start. You got to start with what you love to do, and then you're going to do it great. And because you do it great, you're going to be successful, and then you'll be able to have lots of stuff. And you'll feel much better, by the way. And it happens to me. I see many, many people in daily dealings. Many of my friends and colleagues, I see that they're not so happy about what they do and how much money they have. And they're always thinking that if they have this much more money or this new deal, they're going to be happier. Well, it's not like that at all. It really has to be what you want to do. And that, when you're in your element and you love what you do, you never go to work. You always have fun. So that's a little secret here, right? Are you going to work? No, I'm going to have fun. You want to take a vacation? No, I want to have fun. So that's how you get good at things, because you always do it and you do it and you do it, and eventually you get good with practice. So you cannot be successful in life if you do not enjoy what you're doing. You're going to get cancer and die. So think about what you want to do. For example, you saw there, I was kicked out of the economics career. I really love economics and politics and all that, because the teacher we got into an argument, so got shifted out of that and into accounting. So, I finished accounting, which, by the way, is absolutely the most useful career you can have, because it's the language of business. And if you don't know accounting, you don't speak the language. So many people here that come from a non-financial background, the engineers, you're in disadvantage. So you need to speak a new language. And once you speak the language, everything becomes understandable in the business world. So it's a good career in that respect. But, my first job was to go to an audit firm, because it's accounting and audit, right? So there I go to an audit firm. It's the worst time in my life. I couldn't stand it, just reviewing this and reviewing that. But it was interesting, because part of the accounting business is coming up with ideas and solutions for the customers. Of course, when the ideas come from the accountants, they don't count very much. But it was interesting, and that's what opened my eyes. Is what I want to do is I want to run businesses, and I want to fix things. So that's what I did. Now, the other thing you have to think about, other than your element, is that whether you want to be on the executive side or on the entrepreneurial side. Very different. Very different. Not better or worse, just very different. Entrepreneurs they need to be thinking all the time about the business. It's a 24-hour job. And many times, the family gets a second seat. The friends, way back there. Sports, forget it. Hobbies, forget it. The business is the hobby. And many people think that being an entrepreneur and being their own boss is actually easier. But it's wrong. It's exactly the opposite. It's all the time you got to worry about everything. Worry about the customers, worry about the employees, worry about the financial performance, about the funding. It's always worry, worry, worry. And it's not easy, because you're out there competing with big companies. These days there's very few spaces that are open. But it's highly gratifying. Now, you have to have a character for this. It really is a personality trait. And if you don't have it, you better not try it. Because when you have the other personality traits, which is the execution, the focus, the prioritization, that's also very useful. The executive focus is absolutely important, and there's other skills like leadership, teamwork, and discipline that you need to develop for the executive suite. The thing is, the entrepreneur needs that, but twice as much, because he's all alone there doing stuff. And plus, it's really hard to be an entrepreneur in this world, especially if you're going to go work for a big company, because mostly if you out of the MBA program and you get a job, well, that means you're an executive, and they don't expect you to be an entrepreneur. And if you start saying things and proposing stuff, you're going to become a pain for the structure. It might not further your career very much. So it's very, very difficult, but it has huge rewards if you can do it. Now, on the executive side, you need to execute fast mandates from the board, from the shareholders, the owners. You got to have order and organization skills. And you have to be quick to execute. That means you got to be connected all the time, in touch. I don't think that you have to be available. You cannot be, well, where's the guy? He's off with his buddies playing golf. No. You're going to be on your BlackBerries, on your mail, available all the time. And if you don't do this, you're going to miss out on a lot of promotion opportunities. So it's really difficult when you start because there's this pyramid of people that are trying to get to the top. And there's a natural selection going on, who goes to the top, who stays. And that's where the most effort is required to get through the first steps. But it's possible. And I'm sure you guys will be able to do it. Now, the entrepreneurial path requires vision, commitment, self-sacrifice. But it brings great satisfaction when you see the things that you've been able to do. And under the tremendously difficult odds to build a company that is successful is very, very gratifying. Now, both of these roles, executives or entrepreneurs, require leadership. A leader is somebody who leads some group of people, of course. You need to have people who follow you, otherwise you're not going to be a leader. Now, if you're leading, you have power because you can decide, let's go this way or let's go that way. The thing about power, it's like a coin with two faces. On one face it says power. I can order things, get things done. And on the other side, this is responsibility. Now, how are you going to face the consequences of your actions? So this little coin, it's like a magic wand. You got to be careful how you use it, because you do this, it can turn you into a frog. The power responsibility thing. So it's not something that you can learn in a book. You can certainly prepare yourself for this by watching, by being close to leaders. But like Noel says, good judgment is difficult to find. Why? Because it requires time. A good leader is a guy who makes calls that are successful. And he has followers because people will trust him. So the first thing that's going to happen when you're in a position of authority of leading people is people are going to say, okay, this guy, is he a good, or is he going to walk us off a cliff? First thing. So you need to build this confidence with your people. And I suggest that you start with small things. Not like being on time, being dependable, deliver on what you say personally. So when you have this congruence of what you think, what you feel, what you say, and what you do, then you're a guy that's trustworthy, because it's a single line. And that's the first condition. If you guys want to be leaders, you got to be trustworthy, because people that are following you are very quick to smell the bullshit. Very quick. So that would be my recommendation. Be trustworthy. Now, the other thing, of course, if you're going to be in the leadership position, is the team selection. Who's on the bus and who gets off the bus? Absolutely critical. And perhaps in that respect, here in America, you have a good advantage, because there's lots of team sports that, since you're very small, you get into that. In my country, it's not so good. It's a big opportunity to improve for us. Mostly we do individual sports. Why is the Mexican so individualist? Because they don't trust their leaders. For a good reason. So get ready to be successful. Now, in closing, what's better, to be lucky or to be good? Always to be lucky. Yeah, absolutely. Being at the right place at the right time, always. but it helps if you're good. It helps if you're good. So, I would say is, lucky is being prepared to take the opportunity. Are you guys prepared? I don't know, but I'm sure that after 2 years, you'll be better prepared. Thank you very much.